welcome to International House. My name is Phil Stirpe. I'm Director, as it says here, of Agile and Projects, which means that I'm heavily involved in all things Agile. That's not only training and delivery, but also consulting with clients. What is interesting, sitting back listening to the previous talks, is you might think by the end of the day that we had a serious joined up conversation and planned everything we're going to say, which actually isn't true. We had a few topics, but terms like trust that came out with Ed earlier, and people has come out quite a few times, that it will probably by the end of the day feel like it was a very carefully orchestrated and joint conversation. So in terms of topics to talk around, I've got three and they're all in some way related to Agile. So the first one we went with was self-organisation as a theme, and how to create ownership and empowered workers, which has come up a number of times already this morning. So I figured for a theme I would just go with quotes. I did have my set of criteria would be see if I could get a Steve Jobs quote, a Gandhi quote, and then this week topically a Billy Graham quote. Only because when I was having conversations with some of our more techie types within QA about Agile, one of our very capable techies did actually say to me, that's a bit Billy Graham, Phil, which was reference to, I don't know, Post-its. Billy Graham and Post-its don't really go together, but in the end I've rejected that. So I'll go with Steve Jobs. And if we're talking about self-organisation and people, it doesn't make sense to hire smart people and then tell them what we do. We hire smart people so they can tell us what to do. I won't read them all out, which kind of works. In the context of digital transformation, we've been talking about people, and again, Ed had that one slide towards the end of his piece, which was about trust. And that is a thing that many organisations struggle with. In true sense of being Agile, this slide deck has changed 3 times this morning. And I did notice in a bit of a panic midway through Clive's piece that one of my slides was missing. So I actually hurriedly put this one back just in time. I added this one in because I felt that this as a theme, as an idea, was coming up time and time again. I don't know if you could actually read it from the back, but I'll summarise. But it's a model by William Schneider, which is around culture. I think it was Clive's point about working at various levels within the organisation. I think it was Clive. That it's not just enough to put people on an Agile course or whatever the course may be, that the people at senior levels need to understand it as well. And partly for me, yes, that's understanding it. We need to understand. Elon Musk, it helps them to understand rockets. For leaders, it helps them to understand the technology. But I think it's more than just understanding it, because they've got to empower the team. They've got to support the team. We've worked with a number of companies whose approach to agility, whose approach to Agile was, we'll send these people on a Scrum course, we'll leave them like ninjas in a bat cave to do their thing, and all will be well. And of course, it isn't. It rarely is. There'll come a point where they're going to run out of steam. They're going to be frustrated because actually there's no support above. So this piece by Schneider was quite interesting, quite valuable in the context of this conversation around different cultures. And so I don't know if you recognise any of these, but we've got the competence culture and the control culture. And competence culture is all about being the best. And the control culture is about getting and then keeping control. Collaboration is about encouraging different people within the organisations to work together. And then cultivation is about supporting, nurturing and enabling people. And when William Schneider put this together, he didn't have the agenda of, and where will Agile fit? He was just describing a variety of cultures he'd observed in organisations. Now, if we get into a conversation about agility, and that kind of fits in with the digital transformation conversation, it's argued that, well, anyone want to tell me where we think it's going to be in any one of these? If it's going to dominate in any one of those 4, which one? Hands up for, let's work on the assumption that you're not going to fall into the trap of control. So it gives you 3 choices. So hands up, who's going to go for competence? There's an interesting question earlier on about certifications and how important is certification to the team. Are they, for example, more swayed by, oh, I want a certified Scrum Master, or I want this certification or that certification, or do I just want to learn the skills? So no one for competence. How about collaboration? Who's going for collaboration? That looks to be about 30%. And who's going to go for cultivation? Oh, you win. You voted twice. That's fine. That's all right. You get 2 votes then. Sure. So we seem to trump with cultivation over collaboration. And actually, when various big thinkers went away and did the work and said, well, yeah, it was dominant in cultivation with a hint of collaboration and not so much competence and control. I could quote you the numbers, but I'd have to Google them. But I think that was 4%, that was 9%, and the rest will take care of themselves. So what is very important to an organisation who wants to become more agile is not just let's train the people, let's put them on a course in a very transactional way. It's a mindset. Agility is a mindset. Now, agility is an umbrella term for a variety of different frameworks and practices, but it's very much a mindset. Which we can discuss later on by all means. The mindset's got to start at the top. So again, not just a bunch of highly capable practitioners given the training they need. If there isn't the mindset throughout the organisation, if there isn't the support to provide a culture within an organisation of cultivation and go on a certain degree of collaboration, then it's not going to thrive. So these people will sooner or later become frustrated. So I just added that in earlier in response to a couple of the points, because trust lives here. I would argue that trust doesn't really live in the top right-hand corner, that perhaps a command and control culture implicitly says to the organisation, says to the team, we don't trust you. You're nice and everything, but we don't trust you. So we want to keep that kind of control. What I thought I'd do is, because this is a very passive environment, you're all sat there dutifully looking my way, was actually, even though we've got a Q&A session later on, is to try and get you involved in my piece and the next 2 pieces. So I thought I'd turn it around. So if we accept then, there must be an issue with organisations that run are fueled by command and control and competency. They must exist. The challenge for organisations then is, if they realise they are in the command and control or in the competency culture, what is stopping them? Not necessarily how we're going to get to cultivation, but what's stopping them moving? Because that might be a more powerful argument. What I'd like to do, if we can, and I did have this idea, we'll get you to stand up, which will be a bit energetic, but then I think the 2 camera people are just going to go, don't do that. So I've never tried it this way. We'll do this sitting down, but I'd like you to participate. So what I'd like you to do is we'll spend 2 minutes, tops. Just turn to someone who's next to you. Behind you would be a bit awkward. And if you could just, between the 2 of you, share with one another what's stopping you. So what is it that you're afraid of? Saying, let's have empowered teams. Let's trust the teams to self-organise. So turn to one another, 2 minutes top time box. What is it you would be afraid of or are afraid of?
And I had a one-to-one with my line manager.
So, thank you for that. So we now spent a couple of minutes, I think we went over the 2 minutes, talking to someone who you may have come in with, may never have met before, which is fine, talking about this. So if we accept that a culture of cultivation, in fact, let's reverse, cultivation with some collaboration, we can argue the numbers, is certainly not command and control. What is it that we're afraid of? What is it we worry about as an organisation? So you've had time to have a chat, so we're not being put on the spot now to think of something. We should have at least 50 ideas. So can I pick on you? Because you're right in front of me, is that okay? Yeah? And I'm very pleased with myself because normally I would go, can I pick on you? But my wife had a word, you don't point, which is rude, so I've done that. What did you come up with? What between you?
We just had fear of losing the hierarchy, the lack of control.
So the hierarchy. So pick a word I can spell. So is that at levels managers fearing for the job? Is this another spin on fearing the robots? Now we're fearing that whole level's gone. I'm getting a few hands up that resonates. I'm getting a couple of nods here. So that, oh, we might be out of a job. So, okay, all right, I'll just put a few dots on that. A few like that one. Thank you for that. Anything from over here? I'll take one of you. You, sir.
Lack of, if you devolve responsibility in that sort of environment, people can go off on a tangent, or groups can go off on a tangent.
Oh, okay.
Reachieving what the business kind of vision is.
Right, so I'll just put tangents, okay? Go off at a tangent. So part of us, or part of it is we're concerned about our jobs. So not only have we got to worry about robots, we've got to worry about this empowered team. If we give control to the team, what does that say about us? That's a valid concern. And also, if we don't have the command and control, they might go off on one, they might go off in the wrong direction. Let's take another one, because I think I've got about 3 minutes. Oh, okay, plenty of time. So, madam, have you got one for me? Oh, well, actually, I was pointing at the lady behind you, but I'll take either.
Oh, well, we talked a lot about hierarchy as well, the whole trust thing.
Okay.
And in our organisation, we've seen a big shift from the control of command kind of culture over to more collaborative and conservation, but we don't see consistency. So we were thinking, what are the barriers to that? And actually, we don't know. But
Okay.
that's kind of where we landed.
So you've made a start, but you're not there yet, but you can't think of any specific things that have gone wrong to go, oh, that didn't work, did it?
The scale of our organisation,
Fine.
some parts of our business have really adopted that culture and run with it, but other parts of our business are kind of a bit behind that shift.
Okay.
So kind of we were talking about what's the driver of that and what could we do differently.
So that's interesting, because the point I made earlier about organisations who will that will try and implement Agile, not necessarily by stealth, but in a small way. We'll have a pilot, we'll take a group, we'll train them, we'll put them in the back cave and let them do that Agile thing. And hopefully they will then disseminate and share that information with the organisation, who frankly aren't interested in listening anyway. And the fact that you've got different parts of the business at various stages, and there's still command control over here and not so over here, would suggest the point I came in with, which is, unless we have a culture from top down, that this is a shared journey. As far as the organisation, ACME is concerned, we are moving into this. This is what we want to do. We want to be more agile. We want to promote a cultivation environment. So if that hasn't happened, that tends to be a symptom where we've got isolated pockets. But no team will work in isolation. They've got to collaborate with finance team, governance team, infrastructure team. And if they're not party to, whether it's agility, it doesn't matter what it is, but if they're not party to that, well then this group in the middle are going to become frustrated because they're getting no support. They're just getting barriers, aren't they? Let me just talk about tangents for a moment, because we can still have control within an organisation. We just have to find different ways of finding control. Because ultimately, from what I can pick up on the 3 comments I've had so far, if we just I'll leave jobs for a minute, but if we just take tangents for a sec, that we're afraid this team is going to go off in all manner of direction. We can't trust them not to do that, so we're going to micromanage everything they do. So I have an Agile background. Just about the microphone, I do apologise. I have an Agile background, so a lot of my time is spent working with Scrum teams. And there's this perception that Agile is the Wild West. People go off and do their own thing. There's no control. Whereas in fact, there's a lot of control in Scrum, and similar frameworks do exist. There are lots of rules, there's guidance, there's time boxes. We start a sprint with a sprint goal, so we have a goal, and there are mechanisms within that framework to help us quickly realise, help the team realise, oh, we're going in the wrong direction. We have a goal, we meet once a day, can you imagine, once a day, and we discuss what we did yesterday, and it's the old style one, but what we did yesterday, what we're going to do today, breathe for effect, towards a sprint goal. We get a goal, we agree the goal, we discuss the goal, and every day we check in with that goal. We know as a team if we're drifting off. Someone mentioned, I think it might have been David this morning, about governance, and if we're working in the financial sector, if we're working in the government sector, if we're working in healthcare, we've got to make sure that what we build is safe, is robust, meets certain standards. Well, okay, this isn't a Wild West. Teams, well, if they know what the boundaries are, if we give them a container, so can't do that, must do that, could do the other, but within that framework, within that set of constraints, how you implement that, how you solve that problem is entirely up to you, because we recruited you, you've got the talent, you've got the skills, you solve that problem for us. Are you waving at me? Okay. Forgive me, I've got varifocals, I can't do peripheral vision. So there was a bit of a shadow. Was that 2 minutes or was that time up? I'll be back later on. We'll expand on that theme later on. Q&A later, thank you very much. So.